Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean,
It's
some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. If you are a first-time listener, thank you so much for being here. I have an amazing guest with me today, so you picked a great time to start listening. And for those of you that are returning once again, you know I love you so much, and I'm so grateful for you. And I'm really, really pumped for today's guest because it's interesting. We go way back, but we've kind of been disconnected for the last 3 years because I met this woman also on the healing retreat I went to back in 2021. And the universe just decided to reconnect us because I don't believe in coincidences. And just a few weeks ago, she posted something on Facebook, which I don't generally see her stuff. So the fact that this one particular post came up, I was like, okay. So I responded on her post and was like, I think you need to be on the Tammy Talks podcast. And so she messaged me right like, oh my gosh, absolutely. So we did it, and she's going to be here just in a couple minutes to share her story. But I'll give you a little intro here just in a second. But I wanted to remind everyone that we have some exciting giveaways coming up for my birthday month. I don't really generally celebrate the whole month, but I don't want to put a timeline on the giveaways and things because it's a season of giving. So I just wanted to celebrate, and it's kind of a fun way to be able to share some of my favorite things on my birthday. So, and this date has some relevance to me and my guest, which we'll talk about on the episode. But stay tuned. So make sure that you're following me on social media as well, so you can get in on all the giveaways that we got coming your way. So that's my little update for you. But anyway, my guest is Brenée, and she is a Syracuse University alum, dedicated to helping others reconnect with their true purpose and live abundantly. She has a really cool story about how she spent 5 months in Jamaica writing her book, which we talked a lot about on this episode, and I cannot wait to read it myself. This all happened so fast. So I was like, time to read her book yet, but it's in my Amazon cart and I can't wait to dive into it. But through her transformation, her own connection to herself and to her purpose, she is now helping other people do the same. And she does that through her written words, through her spoken words, which is a whole other cool story about tapping into that, going all the way back to childhood stuff, which you know I'm all about. And just helping people get in alignment with their authentic selves and encouraging them to fully step into their purpose, breaking free from societal expectations, because we've all been there and a lot of us are still living life by that. And to just, again, live life in alignment with their soul's true desires. So I am very excited to have her on here, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear her story and see what resonates for you, because I know there's going to be something in here for everyone. So I will zip it up and hop on over to our guest. All right. I am here with my guest, Brenée, and she just informed me of her pen name, which I never even considered this before, but Brenée Royalty. So let's jump into that. And I have so many places I want to take this episode, but I was like, girl, we're starting with that. Tell us about your pen name.
Hi, Tammy. Well, first of all, I'm excited to be here on your show with you. And yeah, we'll get right into it. So my first name is Brenée with a B before, and Brenée means to be reborn again. And definitely I feel like when I was on my journey of finding my purpose and finding my way in life, I just felt like I was rebirthed, and I connected to the royalty within me. But before, I was living kind of like just I was actually below everything, below all the accomplishments and the corporate career and my CPA. Like I had very little self-worth. And so I tapped into the royal side of me, and on the other end of the brokenness and the pain and my journey, I became Brenée royalty.
Oh, I have so many goosebumps right now. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera. Like, I love that. And I think so many women, especially listening to this, we all need to tap into that. But I'll say for the men listening too, to tap into that side of us and just that worthiness. And that's been a reoccurring theme on these podcasts for those if they're like, yeah, we know, Tammy. It's literally every episode there's something about worthiness. And so I'm so pumped to have you on. And so before we dive a little bit deeper into your story, I was mentioning a little bit on your intro how you and I met. And I love how the universe brings people back in your orbit when you're ready, to like reconnect, because we met back in 2021 when I've shared this story on this podcast before about how I got out there and just being completely lost. And it sounds like that's where most of us were, just searching for something, right? Found ourselves out in Colorado at this healing retreat and, really kind of not necessarily starting this process of rebirth, but in finding ourselves. And so, we connected through Facebook after that. And so I've seen you pop up, here and there throughout these last 2 years, but something recently, I don't even know what post it was, but I was like, oh, hey, girl, I think you need to be on this podcast. So here we are. And it was funny because, so we talked a little bit last week before this, just to kind of reacquaint ourselves and things. And I'm like, wait, stop. I don't want to hear anymore, because so much of what you were sharing on that, conversation, I was like, save it for the pod, because I want my genuine reaction to, because I was already all the goosebumps, all the feels, and was like, nope, I want to save this. So I'm coming into this episode just like the listeners, really, on kind of your story, your journey, and I'm so excited to hear more of it. So share a little bit about what was going on for you that made you go to that retreat as well.
Yeah, it was 1 year into the pandemic. So before the pandemic, I was in fitness. So my background was in accounting. So I made the jump from being an accountant to fitness. And I would say like 2016. And I feel like the first few years, it was awesome. It was amazing. I felt like I was living my dream. And I did feel that at the time, I thought that fitness was my purpose, but it's really the vehicle. So what happens that I always felt like it started out great. And then it seems like the universe was making things fall apart for me. So the last year before COVID hit, things kind of fell apart with fitness, just the team I was working with and just losing clients. And then it feel like, honestly, I'm like, do I really want to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning for the rest of my life and work 16-hour days, giving my body to others? So there was just a lot going on.
Yeah.
And pandemic hit. And I said, when the pandemic hit, that was the last of my fitness career. I was just working from home to make ends meet. But I was just super lost. I was like, I thought I had it all, like, going into fitness. And then like I had this prestigious degree from Syracuse University, and I was a CPA, and I was just like barely making ends meet. And I was just, my living situation wasn't great. I was just like, what is going on? I'm like, I was kind of thinking, why can't I just be like a normal person who just has like a regular corporate job and works their way up to corporate? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, let me give up on trying to live this dream, and there's something deeper out there. Let me just give up on it.
Oh,
That's where I was. And then that's where my toxic relationship started at the same time as well. Actually, it started right after I went on the retreat. But what led me to the retreat was actually interesting, because I was in sales. And I was like, you know what? I don't mind sales as long as I'm selling something that I enjoy. And I got an email from Oliver Nino, because I took one of his like basic workshop courses, like a couple $100. And so I was on his email list. And it was like, they wanted a sales team to sell this retreat. And I remember the first day, it was like maybe 30 of us on the call. And I was like, I need to be at this retreat myself. So I was like, I honestly knew that I didn't want to like compete for the job that they were offering, but I just went through the process. I probably sold about 4 or 5 packages. And part of being with the sales team is that they gave me $1,000 off. And that's how I got introduced to that retreat. And that's actually how I ended up there.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I didn't know that. Wow. Wow. So I jumped ahead to the retreat, but when you talked about fitness, and I just watched the movie Soul this last Friday night with my son, and what you said was basically that movie where it's like I thought fitness was my thing. I thought that was my passion. And if I don't know if you've seen the movie Soul or anyone has seen that yet, but he thought his passion and purpose was music. And it turns out it was so much more than that. It was so much more than that. And I'm getting goosebumps again because it was like helping guide, this other soul to find her purpose. And I don't want to jump the gun.
Right.
Spoiler alert, but
that's exactly what happened because I feel like as an accountant, it was very. I remember making a post because, when I was in accounting, I was working maybe 80, 90 hours a week as an auditor.
whoa.
Yeah, there were tons of hours. And I remember writing this Facebook post that said, 'cause I spend a lot of time in Excel. I'm like, I want to stop working in Excel. I want to open up Microsoft Word and write something creative. So I always knew that I had that creative bug that was, biting me. But, again, I was stuck in being an accountant because that's, what honestly my family encouraged that. I was always good with money when I was younger, and they could encourage me to be worse. So I'm grateful that they encouraged me to do something positive, but it just really wasn't for me. And fitness was like, it was like the outlet a little bit. Like I was creative. Like I wasn't sitting at a desk anymore. I was interacting with lots of different personalities. I was teaching classes. I was doing personal training. And I also got to do a lot of like educational workshops. So I felt like it was what opened me up to a lot of that creative side. That it was like the stepping stone or the vehicle that led me to being my ultimate purpose, which is being an author and a speaker and a consultant that teaches others how to live in their purpose.
Okay. I'm like jumping out of my chair over here because I love what you said about being a CPA, and that was very encouraged by your family because like there's job security in that, there's money in that, and all of those things. And it felt like a big old should when you said that. And so I cannot wait, like, because I do know a little snippet about you stepping into your purpose and where that really started or how that was kind of like boxed up for you. So let's bring the listeners all the way back to childhood and some of the messages and conditioning and things that started then that are really kind of leading to your purpose now.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we spoke last week, I did say that when I'm helping others to find their purpose, one of the questions I do ask is, what were you criticized for when you're a child? And one of the questions is, the answer to one of the questions for me was that I was very super, super quiet, super insecure. And that did come from my mom was like that growing up because when she was young, she was criticized heavily by a teacher for the way she talked. The teacher would say, "Oh, you speak like you have 17 tongues," and that trauma kind of got passed down to me. And so I just grew up very just quiet, not being seen, not being heard, very studious. So on the other side of that quietness is that I was really good at listening. And at the time, I was actually a very analytical brain. I struggled with writing or anything when I was younger and struggled with speaking. Like I used to have to take an anxiety pill if I had to give a speech at school. And I just would quiver the whole time and shake.
Oh.
It was traumatic for me.
Yes.
But on the other side of that, being criticized for being too quiet, I actually became a speaker.
Right.
So sometimes your purpose is hidden underneath what you're criticized for.
Oh, and I have, again, my listeners are like, we know, Tammy, there is a gift in the painful package. We get it. But this is the classic case of that, where it's like you were told this certain thing about yourself, which actually wasn't the truth. But oftentimes I feel like that gift gets kind of hidden. So we have to do this work to get to it, to do the healing, to all of that stuff. So you can then help other people. You know how to help other people do that exact same thing. So it's different than just being handed the gift, And I talk about the piano prodigies and, the 5-year-old singer, opera singer, like those people that they just have their gift. It's right there. But for some of us, it's like, yeah, but if you're going to actually help people with this, you need to figure out how to work through this yourself. You need to figure out how to find this gift yourself. And so you look back and of course, all of those things needed to happen. But what I love about your story, and especially going all the way back, like it started before you, it started with your mom and the messages that she received. And in order for her to, protect you, was to make sure that you never felt that way that she did. And so in a way, with the best of intentions, trying to protect you was really projecting onto you and a lot like making you create this story about yourself when you're finding now, whoa, this has always been inside of me. We just had to take a really windy path to get there. Wow.
Yes.
And, when you talk about having to take anxiety pills and all of these things, and I think sometimes when our gifts and who we truly are is suppressed, I mean, and our ego is like, we can't let this part out because what if we get judged? What if we get criticized? What if we get made fun of? I mean, your body responds in very physical ways. And so you are in basically fight or flight going into a speech. And now that's what you're doing as an adult. Like, that's just, come on, people here. There is just no coincidences. So you had also talked about going back to fitness and what was the turning point in that? Because you had mentioned on our previous call, about some illnesses and things that you were experiencing as a kid. So kind of walk us through some of that childhood stuff that kind of led you to where you are now.
Exactly. As we speak about the pain and the purpose, I feel like my entire journey has been about turning the pain into something that is purposeful. And so what inspired me to get into fitness? So growing up, I was very athletic. I played basketball and soccer. I was always picked first as the girls to play kickball. And I started getting sick around 10 or 11. And I was diagnosed when I was 14 with a rare autoimmune illness called pulseless disease. And what it did is that it inflamed the major arteries of my heart, and they couldn't detect the pulse in my body. And it was very hard. Pretty much I was dying and didn't know it. Ooh. And so a lot of things became difficult, like basic stuff, such as just walking sometimes, or I would fall because not enough blood flow was getting to my brain. I drop things on my foot. I'm losing a lot of weight and just uncontrollable movements. And through everything, I didn't stop going to school. I just kept on going, lots of extracurricular activities. I couldn't play sports anymore, but I was on a lot of medication, tons of medication. I gained a lot of weight. I gained 30 pounds in 2 months because I couldn't stop. Like I remember I think I ate about 22 tacos between 2 days because I just couldn't stop eating. And probably some of the sickness probably did come from just kind of like, I never knew how to express my emotions as a kid. Like I never shared those. It just wasn't something. It wasn't a skill that we knew how to do in home. No. So I was diagnosed, got on a lot of medication, and I just kind of just lived my life normally as I could. I did sleep a lot, and it felt very isolating because only 1 out of every 1 million Americans will have this illness. So I would get a lot of, oh, well, you don't look sick. And so I just stopped talking about it, right? And just,
oh my goodness,
just live my life, really, pretty much. And I was inspired by a class I took in college. It was an entrepreneurship class where it says, turn every problem into a business. So I was like, oh, my problem was having an illness and feeling like I had no one really to talk to. I did have the Facebook group that was kind of my support system.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it would be great if I can create a wellness center where individuals overcoming chronic illnesses can go and not just overcome the illness physically, but mentally and emotionally have a support system. So that was a dream since I was in college. And so it was when I was working in accounting, I went to see a motivational speaker who said that you don't have to wait until all your ducks are lined up to start your dream now. Just start it now. So literally I went home and studied for my certification, got the first certification. It took some years to actually get to fitness full time, but that was the inspiration behind my fitness career. And I said, I'm very grateful for my fitness career because it taught me so much about my body and nutrition. Oh, yeah. And I still incorporate a lot of the things that I learned into my life today. I'm just super grateful for the opportunity to work full time in fitness. It would help me emotionally because my entire self-worth was based on achievement. I went to a prestigious college and university. Yeah. CPA, prestigious, big 4 accounting firm. My entire self-worth was based on my corporate career, success, achievement. I was living in New York City. And when all that got taken away, I mean, I was still living in New York City. I struggled because when I would tell individuals answering that dreaded "what do you do?" question, oh, I'm a personal trainer. It's like, ew, that's what you do for a living? Like you really that's what you do? It made me feel like I wasn't as important because when I used to say when I was a CPA,
Yeah.
oh, they help you with taxes.
Oh,
So it was also an emotional journey to who I
yeah.
truly was. I'm not what I do for a living. I'm who I am as my soul.
Yes. Oh, say a lot for the people in the back. Oh my gosh. And I think so many people can relate to that. And again, that comes from childhood wounds of how do I feel seen? How do I feel heard? And that feels like one that was created probably with the best of intentions, because when your parents or your caregivers, they want you to maybe have a different life and want you to achieve, knowing that that is going to increase the likelihood of your success as an adult, like it comes from such a pure innocent place, not realizing as a kid, and your ego starts to create these stories like, oh, well, maybe that's the only way I can receive love or feel worthy is if I achieve. When really there was unconditional love there, but sometimes if they have their own blocks, they're not able to show that or express that in the way that you might have felt that. So it's no shock that your worthiness was attached to your achievement. And that's a big one for a lot of us to overcome, is how can I just feel worthy just being me and doing what truly brings me joy without having this title, without having the prestige, without having the money to back it up. Like, can I just be worthy, just being me? And it feels like that's this life lesson for so many of us. And so, wow, I love that journey for you and how you're helping others with that. Wow. I'm curious though, was there anything specifically going on when you got diagnosed? Like what was kind of going around in life or family or school around when you got diagnosed or leading up to that? So that's pretty rare for a kid to just get an autoimmune disease at that
Yeah,
young of an age.
honestly, it was just kind of the environment. I grew up where there's always a lot of stuff around, and that comes from other traumas of when we
Right.
just hold on to things, and I never
Yeah.
had my own space. So it's just kind of holding every emotion inside and not having them really that outlet for years. And again, nothing was intentional. I always felt like I'm grateful for my
Yes.
parents, my mom. She did the best she
Yes.
could. And
Yes.
exactly what you were just saying. She came from the Caribbean, so she had that coming to America dream, and she started all
Yeah.
over. She was a teacher, and she started all over. To work her way up to a nurse, and I saw that. So I'm extremely grateful for her. But it just there
Yeah.
is also to not that outlet for her to express her
Right.
feelings growing up. So there's just a
Absolutely.
lot of just a lot of stress and just just led to that. So there's no known cause, but I
Yeah.
always feel like it was just the environment that I was in that led to that for me, and just not being able to and not knowing how to express myself
Well,
and
that's
not
just
having a
it.
voice.
Yes, that is just it. And if I can get one thing across to people through this podcast is that suppressed emotions will eventually manifest physically. Like if we aren't tuned into our emotions and we're not expressing them, eventually your body will try to get your attention. And it's always much deeper than just the symptom, right? Like, no, get curious about the symptom, because something like that, where you said, like, I was basically dying, like, whoa, what? Like, and there's no like direct known cause. It's just kind of happened. Like your body was screaming, your soul was screaming, like, I need a way to express myself and get these emotions out, but we weren't taught how to do that. And so I feel like your inner child and your body start conspiring, like, how are we going to get her attention? How are we going to get these adults' attention that we need this little girl to have an outlet to speak and be who she is and express her emotions? And so anytime that I have an injury or an illness, like I tend to the medical side of things, but I always tap into the spiritual side of things. Like, what is this trying to tell me? And if we could all pause and not just dismiss that side, we learn so much more about what is going on and what our body or what our inner child is actually trying to communicate to us. So it makes sense that fitness became such a cornerstone for you, because that is a beautiful way to move your emotion and to process things and to just, there's a reason emotion has the word motion in it. Like we need to move them.
I
Not,
never thought about that.
yeah, right? You can use that one. But truly, it makes sense to see this evolution, and fitness has played a huge role in my healing journey as well, and still does. Like that's a huge outlet for me. But I also realized that couldn't be the only outlet. And like you said, when all that stuff kind of gets taken away, like, oh shit, like now what am I going to do? so, so walk us through kind of the evolution of this transition to where you are now.
Right, absolutely. So I feel we spoke about the retreat in Colorado.
Yeah.
So with the retreat in Colorado, yeah, that was I was desperate. I needed something. And sometimes it was just getting I was in New York City during the pandemic, right in the heart of everything. So just getting away from the pandemonium was great, just to go out to Colorado. And I came back and I actually did a coaching program with one of the ladies that attended that retreat, Natalie. I was in a coaching program for 6 months, and that's where I started that's where actually I realized, wait, hold on. I've honestly been living my purpose for I think at this moment it was about 7 years. I was a Toastmaster and I was writing inspirational speeches, and I never knew I had a gift of writings. Again, I grew up as an analytical brain. I joined Toastmasters, and the first assignment that you have to do is tell an icebreaker, and I wrote the speech about overcoming my fears. And every time I wrote it, everyone would come, the feedback was like, "Oh, you're such good. I'm inspired by what you're saying." So I was doing it for 7 years. I just never realized it because I was distracted and wasn't focused on what it really is my deep, deep purpose.
Just in the flow, just doing what feels natural. Interesting how that happens. I don't have to this thing. Keep going.
So yeah, no, all good. So with doing the coaching program with Natalie, I was like, okay, he's the speaker. I've been doing this. And again, I didn't have a ton of money at the time. I was broke. I'm like, well, you need a lot of money to start a business. And that honestly is not true. I was watching YouTube and it was like, wait, I can just post some of my speeches on YouTube and Facebook. And that's where I just started. And then as I was fine-tuning and going through the program, I love writing. I actually love writing speeches more than I like presenting, but you have to speak to get your voice out there. So like, I love writing. And I was like, okay, I know that I had to write a book and I want to do speaking as well. And I was like, I remember saying, what's my first book that I should write about? And I want to say this is after. So, I was like February 2022, which is maybe a few months after I started that coaching program. Toxic relationship that started during the pandemic came to a crashing end. And even though I always said I knew that the pain that I experienced had a deeper purpose. And maybe it was like maybe 6 months after I was, what should my first book be about? And I always just asked the universe or God. And I heard the word relationships. I'm like, hell no, I've never been great at relationships. I'm not in a relationship now. I don't have a degree in psychology. It's like, God, give me something else to write about. I'm like, so I say, what else would you like me to write about? Relationships kept on coming.
What else?
Kept on coming. So I was like, okay, fine. So the book was inspired by that relationship. And I actually write it in the foreword of the book that I recycled the pain and turned it into a beautiful work of art. And honestly, it started out also as just a journal entry, something I wrote in my journal, a letter I wrote in the journal. I ended up giving it to the guy, and then it ended up just became the base for the book. But I interviewed other individuals about relationships, and really what the book is about how to cultivate more meaningful and intimate relationships. It has a spicy title, Abundance in the Bedroom.
It does. I was like, oh, tell me more about this.
But I would say it's more about abundance in life because it's helped me in every single relationship where I feel so much confident in having and sharing how I feel, expressing my needs, being aware of myself. And that's important. That's important in all walks of life. And my new thing now, because some individuals, you can't just sit down and have a conversation. They're going to be super dismissive or defensive. So my new thing is now, if I can't speak with the person, I will record an audio message because an audio message, you're allowed to share your emotions through it. Where writing sometimes it misses that, and they have to listen to it. They can't interrupt you or try to shut you down. So that is really what sparked my creativity in writing my first book. And honestly, what's interesting about that book is that, and also I will share that I started the book in New York, but wrote the bulk of it in Jamaica. So I did. Was always one of my dreams. I wanted to spend the winter times in Jamaica. And in 2023, that was the first time I did it. I subletted my apartment for 5 months, pretty much packed up everything in one closet, and then just brought my essentials in 2 suitcases to Jamaica, rented a house sight unseen, which is an adventure in itself.
Yeah.
But but it was an amazing experience. Even though my family's Jamaican, I was 6 hours away from like any relatives. And it was just a very enlightening experience because, everyone says don't travel alone, it's dangerous, and you're gonna get kidnapped and robbed. I feel like it did something for my just self-worth. Like I deserve this,
Yeah.
and self-esteem, because I feel like it becomes disempowering when we're always being told what to do. So I was just in environments where I felt like I was being
Yes.
controlled. So here I was, I made all my own choices, and just being able to figure my way around a new environment, and the people were just so loving and caring, and just it felt good. Like I was figuring things out on my own and finding my way in this foreign country where everyone's telling me I should be so scared. So
Right.
that just it felt great, and I wrote my book, and I did I came back to the States, and to release the book. I published it independently on Amazon, and then so here's the thing: I did go back to corporate America about a year and a half ago, which I thought I never would go back to traditional corporate America. But for
Mhm.
me, I went back now just knowing who I am and with intention. And I always
Mm.
say that it's okay to,
Yes.
I love what I do with my writing and my speaking, my coaching, but it does feel good to have that stable income.
Yeah.
And I feel like to share that it's okay to do both. You can do
Yeah.
both, corporate and create. Because I had this attitude that I had to be one or the other. So
Yes.
it's okay to do both. But I always feel for me is to be around individuals that I like being around, and just do work that I like doing. And that's something that's always very important to me. And I say I do like the work I'm doing. And I will say it's interesting at the job that I'm at is that I started out in a team that I absolutely loved the team. And I kind of got moved to a team that I don't feel as aligned with. But I'm very vocal about it because I will not stay in a team that I don't feel aligned with. So again, it's just that
Mm.
self-worth. I deserve to
Yeah.
be in a team
Yes.
where I feel respected
Woo.
and accepted. And so my inner work and writing the book and expressing myself and getting my voice out there helped me with my corporate career and to get the best out of it. So that's where I am now. The book came out and I got the ebook. The audio book also just recently came out in September. And I think one thing I want to share about that is that I had self-doubt because I never
Oh
published a book
yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And you know what it is? The self-doubt, again, I wasn't in a established relationship. I didn't have a degree in therapy. I'm not, was it the 5 love languages? I almost never published that book. I almost tried to write another one. So I remember when I sent the book to the editors, I was like, man, you know, who am I to publish this book?
Ooh.
And then that's what goes back to having such a strong intention. Just went back to my why. And I know God told me to write the book. I'm like,
Right.
God doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
So
It's
that's what
not my
gave me
choice.
the confidence to go out and publish the book. And the same thing with the audiobook. I didn't feel like I never recorded an audiobook. Is my voice good enough for an audiobook? Yeah, I'm not a professional narrator. And again, I just kept on pushing through. And it came out great. So that's where I'm at now, just
Ooh.
building the workshops and teaching others how to live in their purpose.
I love all of this so much. And that it's just you having relentless. I was like, no, I was told to write this book, to publish this book, and just fully trusting that. And entrepreneurship will completely rip the band-aid off of any childhood wounds you have. It's like, oh, you don't think you're worthy? Let's try entrepreneurship, where you're going to have to prove it over and over and every single day, and have this relentless belief in yourself. And also having that anchor of faith, whatever that is for you, to know that you're being guided and know that there was purpose behind that relationship and it becoming this book, and knowing that if it helps one person, like, job done, mission accomplished, right? But you're going to end up helping so many more people simply by showing up. Like, part of your message, and I hope people listening to this podcast, isn't just the book itself, it's hearing the work, the internal work that you had to do to get that book out there. We go to a bookstore and we see this book, we have no idea the wounds and the barriers and the blocks and the childhood wounds people had to do to put themselves out there. And when you're sharing something that's vulnerable, you're not just writing a children's book. Like, it's called Abundance in the Bedroom. Like, again, it's vulnerable. and to put that out there. And now it's like, are people going to actually buy this? Right. It's one thing if you're just putting that out there, but like now there's numbers and, tangible things you can look at to determine your worth. But if you don't have that solid foundation of like, I'm worthy of regardless of this thing sells or not. This story was meant to be shared regardless. And it's like when you have that and you can release the expectations or the outcomes, like that's powerful. And that's when ooh, I really have done some healing around my worthiness. When I can fully trust that I was meant to write this and whatever happens, happens. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that. And I love the journey of writing the book. And it definitely felt therapeutic I felt like I was just purging. I was purging in the book. And the book, honestly, it helped me. I feel like sometimes as writers, your writing helps you most. And just by putting it out there, so obviously it's going to help others to become authors as well, or just to share their story. And vulnerability. Like, again, I didn't grow up with any type. What is vulnerability? What is a feeling? So just sharing some of my intimate stories in that book just helped me to build inner strength.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to give people that are not only reading it, but listening to it permission to also look at their own stuff, also learn that vulnerability is a strength. And there's something to gain out of all of our experiences, whether they're writing a book or not, and that's where I feel the same way when I write, like that's therapy for me. That's an outlet for me. And I'll share it. Again, if it helps one person gain a little insight or perspective or something resonates with them, awesome. But it's just that outlet. And that can look different for everyone, but I think we all need some sort of creative outlet, some way of expression, whether that's through art or through dance or through movement or through writing, or like there's to tap into that part of us, and I've talked on here a little bit about, our different energy centers and our sacral chakra being, which is like, you kind of hit them all because your sacral chakra is all about creativity, money, sexuality. So it's just like, you just blew it wide open with this book. I want to do all the things and package it in a book. is really powerful because we don't realize like how blocked we can be and how that just can completely disrupt your life. And so by opening that up and speaking to it is really, really powerful and really freeing for you and hopefully for a lot of other people that tap into your work.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the book was liberating for me, especially because I grew up with that good girl image, straight A's, honor society, accounting, and it was just like, I'm gonna write about abundance in the bedroom. So ripping off of that, I'm no longer the good girl. I'm being my authentic self. And what's interesting is that I've attracted my tribe, and some individuals have kind of fallen away, and some families kind of look at me, act around strange around me now, but I'm attracting the individuals that really should be in my life. And I've actually circled back to one of my best friends from high school that we kind of, not say we lost contact, but she was in Atlanta, I'm in New York, life, and we're going to be doing a girls trip to Thailand in April. And we're on like similar journeys, just about liberation, freedom, finding our authentic self. So yeah, we do circle back around to our tribe, and our tribe will find us when we're living our life authentically.
Yeah. It's interesting because I just got back from hosting an inner child healing retreat. And one of the things that we talked about on our final day was, these women had spoke about their goals and dreams and desires the day before and like stepping into their highest self. Like, what does she look like? What does she wear? How does she sound? How does she start her day? How does she show up for herself? How does she feel? Like tapping into this energy of how she feels. And so they were all empowered. So, well, then we get to Sunday and we're going to hop on that plane and head home. And how are you going to hold on to that energy? And I think the scariest thing for people, it's one thing to like put on that coat and try that energy on, like, yeah, that feels good. And then you start to step into your purpose and you start to see how that impacts or triggers other people in your life. And if you stepping into your power requires massive change in your everyday life, that can like put on some massive brakes for people because that's scary. But oftentimes it may be exactly what needs to happen. But like you said too, it also doesn't always have to be an all or nothing. How can I integrate both of these this lifestyle, the part of me that's, putting myself out there, but also this part that is kind of living this corporate life. And it can be both. It doesn't always have to be this massive earthquake of our lives. Sometimes it needs to be. And it depends on how much you're resisting the thing, right? I think I remember when we were at that retreat. Do you remember when they asked us on a scale of 0 to 10 how like big we wanted to feel these changes? And everyone's like, Jumanji level.
Yeah.
Jumanji level. And they were like, be careful what you wish for. And I'm pretty sure I was one of those. And then, sure enough, my life as I knew it then is completely changed. But that's what I asked for.
Right.
I asked for like, I'm done. I want that massive change. I don't want the slow trickle on the faucet, like full blown, let's do this. And even though there's times I'm like, God, this has been like so drug out. But really, when I look at it in the grand scheme of things, a lot has changed in 3 years. A lot has changed. And you don't always like give yourself credit and be like, oh my gosh, this is taking forever and blah, blah, blah. But especially when you're having to do the healing work on top of it, that's very different. But you're right. We do have to remember that if things or people are falling away, it is meant to make room for those who are supposed to be there. And sometimes the people that, were there with this unhealed version of you aren't always meant to experience the healed version of you. And maybe at some point they learn to accept you or they want to come with you. And maybe you meet up at some point like later down the road. But I think that's a really important message for everybody is like, when you trust this journey, you really have to trust this journey and that the people that are meant to be there will be there and the ones that aren't will fall away. And that's where you can bless and release because there's always a lesson in it, right? Even that relationship. Like you wrote a book that like inspired by that. Like, of course that was meant to happen in your life. Was it painful? Yeah. Did you have to do a lot of healing? Yeah. But look what came out of it.
The Jumanji experience, yeah, definitely. I feel after the retreat, to say I did get Jumanji. It was a very painful 2-3 year Jumanji, and every time I thought I got some relief, I just got deeper into things. Yeah. It was just, but hey, there's the other side of it, and knowing that everything that happens there, we will come around, and we come out stronger and wiser. So,
yeah, give us a little bit more insight into the book, or maybe if there's certain parts of that relationship you feel comfortable sharing here that allowed you to really grow to then putting this book out. Like, what are some of the things from that book that people be like, oh, I need to check this out?
Oh yeah, no, it's interesting. Even though the book was inspired, I really didn't write much about him in the book. It was more about maybe just in past relationships. Yeah. Honestly, feeling like I was doing all the work. I was in this masculine energy of being the giver. Mm-hmm. And honestly, really, so it's abundance in the bedroom, 4 things women desire from a man. And I don't mind sharing the 4 things. They're very basic things, but I feel like, again, it relates to any relationship. In any relationship, you want someone to be thoughtful. You want someone to be mature. You want someone to consistently communicate. And then the 4th one is more focused on, or I guess, intimate relationship of understanding her sexually. And really, it's different. I have different sections of different stories or guides, and at the end of each section is how does this make her feel? Because I feel that what I had to learn as a woman, that I'm like, I talk to men, I thought I told him X, Y, and Z, and why is he not listening? But if I don't share how I feel with him, he can't relate to it. He picks up on the feelings in our bodies.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't acknowledge a feeling in my own body and express it verbally, he's not picking up on it. And that's where there's just a lot of just conflict.
Yeah.
And so really just what the book is really is emotional health, is understanding, again, understanding how you feel and being comfortable sharing how you feel and expressing your needs. And hey, I like to watch TV and cuddle on Saturday. That makes me feel really good and really like I really love doing that. It has to be communicated that way, unless that individual may not understand that. So,
well, and you think about the range, and I think this is where, again, doing this deeper work, we realize how blocked we truly are from communicating our needs. And I mentioned on an episode a couple weeks ago, like, we were shushed as babies. Like, you were communicating a need as a baby when you were crying, and you were like told, shh, you're fine, you're fine. So from being a baby, we were taught, hey, your needs are kind of a burden right now. Can you like, because they might have assumed like, you don't need to be fed, you don't need to be changed, you don't need to be like, no, there's something I need. And so you think about how early that is ingrained. And then you're a woman in a relationship trying to communicate a simple need. Like, I just need to be able to talk about my day and to feel heard in that. But then you're going to speak up in the bedroom about what you want. Like, oh, hell no. Like, I know there's so many women that I have worked with that would be like, yeah, no, I've never said that. I've never been able to do that. And you just see the blocks everywhere. And we wonder why we have relationships that are just stuck and stagnant because we haven't been able to work through our own blocks to realize I need to feel safe in communicating my needs. But knowing that you have a partner who can also be receptive to hearing that versus feeling like they're being attacked because, oh, maybe I'm not good enough now, or whatever the case is. Like, it's a two-way street of being able to work through our own stuff so we can be there for each other. But exactly. I love that you're helping women empower themselves to find their voice because, whew, I feel that.
Yes, exactly. So pretty much the premise of the book is that women are more emotional beings, and then when our emotions are cared for, that we're more receptive to abundance in the bedroom and more desire that. More men are generally more physical beings, and sometimes there isn't that understanding of those differences. But at the end of the day, we feel like we all want the same. We all want the same things in our relationships.
Right. And just like, let's communicate that. Like, no.
Easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely easier said than done. Because again, sometimes expressing your needs as a kid, if you spoke up about something, you might have gotten in trouble. Or like you said, there's times I didn't feel heard. Like you had an illness and because no one really understood it, silenced. And there's a lot going on, not just physically for you, but emotionally. To be would you say 10-year-old when that happened?
Yep.
To have your life completely change, like, okay, I can no longer do sports was a huge outlet for you. Now I'm taking all these medications. I'm walking around not knowing if I'm going to die or not, like, and no way to express that or to feel safe in those emotions. Like, holy man. So it takes a lot of work to get to a place, even as an adult, to feel safe expressing those things. But that's such a huge, huge message for everyone here is sit in that discomfort. Why is this uncomfortable for me to clearly communicate an emotional need that I have? Because you're right. Like women are very intuitive. They are very emotional. And if those needs aren't being met, we will shut down. We do. Like, nope. Access denied. Not just in the bedroom, but like in your heart. Yeah, because eventually it's like, you don't hear me. You don't see me. This doesn't feel safe. You start protecting yourself. You start building walls around your heart. Like that's hard, but it all comes back to those basic needs, right? Like you talked about feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling valued, accepted, just loved for who you are. Like it all comes back and you're expressing that as an adult, like, hey, here it is, still here, just in a very different context. No, I love it. I'm excited. That's in my cart. I'm reading it. So you have a whole signing and everything coming up, right?
Yes, I have my official book signing coming up December 9th in New York City. It is in person, but I will have some online workshops in the near future. So it will be a book signing and also a workshop on how to live in your purpose. So I'll be sharing a lot of my story and answering questions from the audience. So it's a mix of both. But yeah, I'm definitely excited for it.
I love that. Well, share a little bit about, first of all, December 9th is a very great day. It's my birthday. So I told you on our call, like all the positive vibes and energy on that day. So I'll be sending lots to you that day. But talk about like the one-on-one work that you're doing as well. And so when you talk about these workshops and how you work with someone and what's kind of, I know the process is different for everybody because it's kind of hard to like, package purpose work when everyone's is so different, but what's kind of your philosophy and method with people?
Right. So in addition to the workshops that I do work one-on-one. And I say I'm a consultant who mentors others on how to connect to and live in their purpose. So I want to be able to empower someone to find their own way. I'm a guide. So what I do with my clients is I help them connect to that purpose through deep questions going back into their childhood. There's different exercises that we do to connect to that purpose. And it's like molding a sculpture. You might have to mold and to play with it a little bit and come back to it, but we connect to the purpose. And then there's the inner work of being aware of the limiting beliefs and the mindsets and the attitude is so much of it. So there's the mental aspects, which is also embodying this individual or the purpose that they want to serve or who they want to be, learning to embody it. And then there's the implementation and really guiding them on how to do that. So it's a 3-month program. And then I don't throw people away after 3 months. But again, like I said, I love to empower. I want someone to, I'm a guide to help them find their own way. If they want to do additional 3 months, I will do additional 3 months with clients and also teaching them to find a community in addition to my community, the My Live Your Purpose community that I have. It's important because I know when I went through coaching and like the retreat, you go back to the environment and sometimes it's hard to keep that energy. So I teach on how to have a community and the tools that keep your frequency at a high level. So you're sometimes not getting stuck back into that low level energy or very logical, analytical thinking. Is to keep vibrating high.
Yeah. Yeah, that was what we talked about at the end of this retreat. Like, it's one thing to be here in Sedona and to feel the energy here, but you're going to go home and like, how do you tap into that? And just to know that, and what we wanted those women to embody was you don't have to be in Sedona to tap into that energy, to tap into that frequency. Like, you can close your eyes and like imagine yourself here, but it's like, again, tapping into that why and tapping into that purpose. Like, you can feel that, and that just naturally elevates that. But you have to have those people around you too that can help support that, because I had an episode a couple weeks ago about like protecting your energy and reclaiming your power, because it's really easy to get pulled right out of that, regardless of you're standing firm in your purpose. Like, I'm sure you have a million examples of like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And all of a sudden, like, whoop, back down, whether it was your own stuff or other people's projections or just other barriers or blocks. Like, this stuff is coming at you all the time. And that's actually part of the process, right? Is like, can you stay here at this frequency? And I got a massive test going into the retreat about that. Like, are you going to be able to maintain this frequency? Are you going to be able to show up as your highest self, regardless of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on? And that was a doozy. I'm like, all right, here we go. That was a big old test, but I think I passed it. I think. Well, the other thing you talked about that I want to come back to, because I think anyone even contemplating this kind of work and tapping into their purpose is the whole imposter syndrome. And holy crap, have I felt that a million times doing what I'm doing. Because again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. Like, I'm a dietitian who's done basically her work as a counselor. Like, I was way more of a therapist than I was a dietitian. It was rarely ever talking about the food. It was always the deeper underlying stuff. But now stepping into this inner child space, like, whoa. And I get that sometimes too. Like, well, are you a therapist? Are you this? Are you that? And so for you, the same thing of like writing this book, like overcoming that imposter syndrome and just knowing like, no, like, I was given this experience. I was told this was what I had to do and to write that. And so talk a little bit about how you overcame that imposter syndrome and just did it. Just put yourself out there regardless. That maybe never really ever fully goes away, but how do you
right? But you're moving in the right direction. Honestly, that was my first ever Toastmaster speech about moving towards your fear. And when you're scared, but you're moving towards that direction anyway, you're in the right direction because you're moving outside your comfort zone. So for me, I did get the confidence. Again, I didn't know I was a writer. I was writing speeches at this time when I started writing the book, it might have been 9 years. I was writing inspirational speeches with Toastmasters. And again, just going back to when I start a project, I have that intention and that why. So when I was experiencing the self-doubt with the book, I went back to my why, my intention. And again, that experience where I asked the universe or God, which I write about in our relationships. And that's when I was just, you know what, I have to finish this, because I feel like sometimes when we keep on starting and not finishing something, it is a sign of like lack of self-worth. Like, okay, who am I to use this book? And honestly, I've had good response to the book. And why I probably didn't go traditional publishing and went independent publishing, because I wasn't ready for the rejection. Like, this is my story, this is my baby.
Yeah.
What do you mean it's not good enough? So for me, it's I knew I had stories to tell, and this is my first book that I start writing, and I've had the experiences where I didn't know how to market it, so I did speak to some individuals, and I did get that feedback of, hey, just scrap this book, put it on Amazon, forget about it, and write another book because you're not. I think it's Gary Chapman with the 5 love languages. You're not this, you're not that. And obviously, it is a little bit discouraging, but again, that's going back to that strong self-belief. God told me to write this book, so I'm going to stick with it. And I originally published the book 2 years ago. I republished it last year, and then this came out with the audiobook in September. So again, it was a process.
Yeah.
And now I'm building a business around it, and the business I'm building has nothing to do with abundance in the bedroom. So it's just believing in yourself and pushing through and taking it one step at a time. I didn't know how to write an entire book when I started writing. I knew how to write, though. I knew how to open my laptop and start writing, and that's what I did. And then everything else would open up from there. Start talking to individuals that have written books. So I talked to one friend who went the traditional publishing route, and one friend who did independent. They gave me a lot of great advice. I just took it step by step from there. But the overcoming self-doubt is just connecting back to the intention and something bigger than yourself. And that's why I always say it's always important to have a why when you're starting this journey to living your purpose.
Well, and I love that you bring up that question of like, what were you criticized for, or what was shut down as a kid? Because it's often you can find the pieces there. And for people that have been listening, to my podcast for a while, like that's been part of mine too, was always being told I was too much, and knowing that I was always meant to speak. I was always meant to be doing something that was out there, but that was the opposite of what I was told growing up. And not by everybody. And this is what, when we talk about childhood wounds and stuff like that, and people always just immediately go back to your parents. It was not my parents that were doing that to me. It was, my FIA teacher. It was a friend's mom. It was someone at school. And so it's not always that parent. I feel like my parents were very encouraging of my personality. And I felt like that was celebrated, that I was kind of this like, kid. But now looking back, I shared this story. I actually have my picture here of my 3rd grade self. And we put it in the frame for the retreat, but on the back, she literally wrote, my 8-year-old self wrote on there, "Make sure you let everyone see me." And I was like, what the? What?
He wrote that at 8. Wow.
8. Make sure you let everyone see me. Like, why would I write? It was supposed to go to my sister Tanya, but apparently she never received it. But like, why would I even write that to her? But here was that message way back in my childhood was the very thing I needed to work through and heal in order to be able to do as an adult. And so when people are hesitant to go back and look at your childhood, like, no, that's where the puzzle pieces are. Like, that's where the information is to tap into your inner child stuff. And, when you talk about connecting to that why and connecting to that higher purpose, it's also, I think, connecting to the little boy or girl in you who had those dreams and goals. Because I think about it, and I told this to a friend the other day, I kind of forgot about what I wanted to, like the first thing I wanted to be when I grew up, and I wanted to be an actress. And I was like, oh man, like, whether I was an actress or just like, I wanted to be in the spotlight. Now I have lights on me, like, no, like it's all there. But we have to be willing to go look at it and then understand why those things were covered up or why we dimmed our light, and just working through that to really step into your purpose. And so I love that there are more people out there like you that are guiding people to that in a totally different way. And it brings up the point, not only just imposter syndrome, but like, who am I? Who am I to? Or there's already so many other people doing this work, but no one is you, right? Like how you're going to help someone find their purpose is very different than maybe how I'm going to help them find their purpose. And you will find your people. And so for anyone that's listening, and you're like, well, who am I to write a book? Who am I to, like, who are you not to be? If you have that dream or that desire, that was planted in you for a reason. And so I love that despite what you were told growing up, despite the conditioning, that you like follow that. Oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 7 years. Like, what the hell? It's always been within me. So that's so cool. And yeah, we just have to remember, like, abundance, right? There is abundant opportunities for everyone to get out there and use their gifts and shine their light. And so I'm so grateful that you are doing this work. And then we were able to reconnect because I can't wait to read the book myself and to share that and share this episode so more people get exposed to you and the work that you're doing. Because like I said, we need more people like you out there.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm extremely grateful to be on your show.
Yeah. Well, again, I know that you didn't just pop up in my news feed for a reason. There's always like that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, what? Oh, so I noticed those things and how I feel when I noticed that. Like there was just an immediate like, oh my gosh. So I'm excited that you were so open and flexible for hopping on here. And I want people to be able to follow you. So give us all the details on how people can follow you and get the book, all that jazz.
All right. So the book is available on Amazon. If you just Google Abundance in the Bedroom, it will come up. So again, at paperback, ebook, audiobook, and follow me on social media at Brenée Royalty Speaks. And Brenée is spelled B as in Bravo, Renee, Royalty Speaks. I'm on Instagram and TikTok and on Facebook.
Awesome. And I will make sure I put all these links in the show notes as well, so everyone can easily click there and find you. So awesome. Well, let's leave with one little parting thing. If there was one thing that you could tell the listeners and how to find their purpose, what would be the wise words of Brenée Royalty?
I don't know if it's finding, but I feel like just knowing that when you are living in your purpose, that is one of the best ways to love yourself. And I think just knowing that and connecting to that, and that will open you up to taking the initial steps.
Ooh, I love that. I love it. I would drop my mic, but I'm not going to do it. I would let you do that. Mic drop. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited for your book signing. I hope you have all the success in the world with this book and everything you're doing to help people, the workshops, the one-on-one coaching. It's so powerful to know that, you know, like one person, like how that could just and spread out and help so many more people. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast. And we will be in touch because you're just stuck with me now. So I will be following you.
Much gratitude.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for all of you listening, take her advice and we will see you all next week. Thank you.